Okay, I shall let some people into the waiting room. Here we go. Hi, everyone. I can see Fernanda, Sarah, Luciana, Laura. Lubna, Iski's here. Damien, Simona. Awesome. Let's let a few more people in. Thank you for being on time. Right, we've got 1 minute or so to go. We are recording, so you will have seen that notification probably, just so that you know if you've got your camera on. I can see Ariel's in the waiting room. Let's admit that. Brilliant. Well, thank you all for coming. It's going to be good, I think. So we are in the meeting format. So if you want to come off mute at any point and chat, that's fine too. I can see a few more people joining. Vicky and Stephanie are just going to come in now. And we'll give it a minute or so because it's not quite past. And I'm going to share my screen. I share that screen there. It's a long time since I've had to set myself up with 2 different screens, but I have now. And what you should be able to see is a world map. And what would be really cool is if you can use the annotation tools in Zoom. If you go to the top of your Zoom bar, there's a little pencil icon. It says annotate, and you can choose an icon. If you go to stamp or draw, you can tell me where you are in the world. So you can collect the stamp, and I am there, blue. I can see Laura's put herself in North America. Damien doesn't look that far from me. So you can annotate yourself on there, and we'll see where everybody has come from. I'm going to open up the chat panel as well. Hello. Right, I want to make sure I'm admitting everybody as well. So I think we'll probably end up with people popping in and out as the evening goes on. It's evening for me. I'm in the UK. It's 7:30 here. And I imagine for some of you who are putting stars in the Brazil, maybe, and North America, it's more in your middle of your day. And whoever was the heart, you will be later than me, I expect. So for those of you who've just joined, what we are doing is putting an annotation on the map to let us know where you are from. You can find the annotate tools at the top of the Zoom toolbar. And if you're anything like me, you would have found that I've spent most of my day on Microsoft Teams, and then suddenly to have to change to a new tool set. And it's like, oh, it's Zoom. And I use Zoom a lot. But yes, it's just fine remembering where all the different buttons are and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've still got people arriving, and I can see people drawing on the map where they're from. There's one heart really far away, which this must be early in the day for you. And also someone's marked, is that India? Somewhere India way? That it must be quite late for you as well. I'm just going to let Maggie in. There we go.
Pakistan, actually.
Pakistan. Okay, sorry. So the map's not really granular enough for me. Also, that's probably a reflection on my geography. Okay, so just as I can still see people joining us, we had 120-ish people register for today. The meeting room will only take 100, and we are not going to be at capacity, I'm sure, because I know that a lot of people say they can come and then life and work get in the way, and then they're not able to do that. But people who have registered and who aren't able to join, and equally, if you're on the call at the moment and you need to drop off to go to a meeting or just have dinner or just for whatever reason, I've got children, so hopefully I'm not going to get interrupted just before bedtime. And you know, there will be a recording. We are recording this, so you will be able to catch up and watch any portion of it that you didn't get a chance to see. Who's put a heart in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? It must be like the middle of the night for you. Anyway, that's fine. That's fine. So we've also got closed captioning. So I hope someone has popped that on. That's perfect. You can see that at the bottom if you need it, or if you want to message me, if anyone wants me to enable that at my end, that's fine too. I'm very happy to do that. Okay, so let's close down some of these windows, otherwise I will find that I will not be able to get everything operating. Oh, Deb's here, that's nice. And Marcelo as well. Okay, so I think it's 3 minutes past. I know that time is precious, and I don't think I'm going to need the whole hour tonight. It's not. We haven't got a load of stuff to get through, but you know. So let's dive in. Are we ready to make a start? Let me move this out the way. So I've got 1,000 windows, even with 2 screens. Never mind. I'm sure you know what it's like. Okay, so I'm going to have to clear those annotations off, but thank you for showing me whereabouts you are in the world, because if I don't do that, then I have a feeling that they will appear on my next slide. Then we'll just have hearts and stars everywhere. So I'm going to clear all the drawings. Thank you, so that we can move on. Brilliant. All right, so we are here today because I thought it would be helpful to have a little bit of accountability really with career planning and professional development for the year, because I know it's sometimes quite hard to be motivated to put together your own professional development plan for yourself if you're a team leader for the team as well, because you know it's January, we tend to do a lot of that kind of stuff at this time of year. So if you lead a team, maybe there'll be some bits and pieces you can pull out of our conversation today to help with that as well. So the purpose really of getting together is to kickstart that conversation and make it easier for you to commit to some time to find some time for development. So before we get going, properly get going. So let's click. Setting professional goals is what I want to show up. I also wanted you to find the chat, if I know some of you have already, and just tell me a bit about your role and why you're here. What is it that made you think that coming along to a conversation about career planning tonight was going to be good? Because then I can just make sure that if there's particular things or particular questions that people have got or particular reasons why you're here, then I can hopefully weave that in as we go through the meeting. So I'm interested in what your job role is. Are you all project managers? Do you work in projects in a different kind of capacity? Or are you team leaders, PMO people, or just curious about what project things could do? So there's a chat option. Again, that's at the top. If you open that, you should be able to see, and you can either send it direct to me, or you can change it to say to type it just to everyone in the room. So I can see Leanne says project manager in the USA in healthcare, and some of you might know that I work in healthcare as well. I'm a project manager within a healthcare charity in the UK. So I've spent quite a long time in healthcare actually now. Laura's a PM as well, medical manufacturing. That's quite a unique field. Rosemary's leading a team that includes project managers, development and support. So we've got a mixture then of people, digital program manager for the NHS, a lot of healthcare people, healthcare non-profits, says Ariel. That's awesome. Healthcare is such an interesting field to be in, whether it's manufacturing and devices, whether it's public sector, whether it's private sector or third sector charity work. It's so fast paced and it makes such a difference to people's lives, which is why I love it a lot more than I loved working in financial services anyway. But Vicky's in financial services, banking in the US. We've got a huge range of different roles, but mainly project managers. So that's really helpful for me to know. Thank you. Let's ping that down. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to check is that people have got access to this career planner PDF, which I will put the link in the chat in case you haven't got it. Let's paste that in here. Najib says yes. Perfect. So if you haven't got it, it's a PDF. You can get it online. You can download it. You can fill it in. And that's the framework for our conversation today. If you want to share that with your colleagues, fine. If you think some of the questions are naff and you don't want to fill them in, that's fine too. You know, it's there as a starting point for a conversation. So that's why I've put it together. In fact, I put the career planner together with few changes regularly. I'm just going to clear that off because I can see people. Someone's just annotating on the screen. You're not going to be able to click on the screen. You're going to have to use the link in the chat to access that file. Okay, but again, you don't actually need it for today's conversation. If you just want to grab yourself pen and paper, grab yourself a pad, you can take notes, open up a Google Doc or a Word document or whatever it is that you want to do, you can use that instead as well. You don't have to have access to that PDF right this second, but you know, it's there for you as a resource if you want it. Okay, couple more housekeeping things. If you have noticed, we're actually in the meeting version format of Zoom, which means anyone can talk at any point, although you've all been so lovely and put yourselves on mute, which is great. But if you do want to raise your hand, come off mute, interrupt me at any point, ask questions, you know, I've set it up as a meeting rather than a sort of webinar, so it's not just me talking all the time. But for minimizing background noise, then thank you for being on mute. You're also welcome to put your cameras on if you would like to do that. And there's the raise hand icon as well if you want to just jump in, or you want to tell me that you've got something that you would like to contribute. Okay, so any questions? If you don't want to interrupt, if you don't rather not come off your mute button, then you just drop them in the chat. We'll have some time for chat afterwards and discussion. So we're going to talk through our 5 steps of career planning. We'll have time at the end if you've got other things that you want to bring up. Okay, so it's another annotation thing. How do you feel about this time of year and this session? Oops, sorry, gone too far. Oh, gone too far the other way. How are you feeling about reflecting on last year and planning for this year? So you can either let me know in the chat by typing 1, 2, 3 or 4, or you can go back to those annotate icon tools within Zoom at the top menu bar. You can grab a star or a heart or a squiggle and mark yourself into one of those quadrants. I should be, because I facilitate this meeting, I should be here saying, yeah, I'm all in, but actually it's, you know, it's 20 to 8. So I'm here, I'm present, I've showed up, I've had my dinner, and I have to say I am quite tired after working a day, but that's not unusual, really, is it? So we've got a mixture of people, and I actually can't take credit for this slide. If you want to use this slide, this format in one of your other meetings, then it came from a fantastic facilitation course that I did with Jan Keck, and it was about virtual facilitation. I'm happy to tell anybody more about that. I could rave about him and his teaching style for the next hour, but I won't. But this is a slide I directly ripped off of him. As you can see, there's a link at the bottom as well, though. So that's actually Heike Bruch and Samantha Goschal who came up with this format. So it's just a nice exercise to do at the beginning of virtual meetings as a check-in to find out how people are feeling about the thing. And so it's a sense of, I think we're getting a sense of, we've got some people with high energy, some people with high focus and a little bit low energy. We're all doing our best. That is actually all I can ask. So that's good enough for me. All right. Now, because this is a little bit different from some of the sessions that I teach, like the stakeholder engagement class that is coming up in February, and it's you doing the thinking, the reflecting and all that kind of stuff. And we might be talking about each other's plans. You're not obliged to share anything, but if you do put things in the chat, or if there's moments where you think actually you want someone else wanting to clear those annotations, don't I? They're all over the place. Then I did want to just share a few community agreements for us to talk about as a group. One of the things that's quite important in virtual sessions or in any meeting that you're facilitating really is that it's absolutely fine to take space. We are here to listen to people's views. So if you want to come off mute and speak, by all means do, but equally we make space for other people. So we don't want to dominate the whole conversation. So this concept of taking space and making space just gives us the opportunity to make sure everybody's voices get heard. We are recording this. It is going to go out onto YouTube afterwards. So if there are things that you don't want to put out there on the internet, then please don't put them in the chat. Oh, actually, the chat won't go out on YouTube. But, you know, don't come off mute and share your innermost career thoughts about quitting your job because you hate your boss, and because don't say things that you wouldn't share around the water cooler at work. That's the basic premise. And I also think it's worth us acknowledging that with the people in the room, we have quite a lot of experience, and it's not just me who's sitting here saying, you know, this is how you must do things. By all means, if someone posts something in the chat or someone shares a question and you know, or you've been through that experience, then just dive in, because we are wiser when we work together. And there will be different people in the room who are at different stages in their careers. And I know that, you know, because I do a lot of mentoring, and I often come away from a mentoring session and think, how do people not know this stuff? And then I think, you know, I've actually done this job for over 20 years now. People are at different stages. So if someone is talking about, you know, what's in it for them, or what their career goals might be, or you're worried about saying yours because you don't think it's good enough or ambitious enough, then please don't be concerned. Everybody is at different stages in the process. Leanne said, am I able to share a copy of the slide deck after the call? Yes, I can do that. I'll put that somewhere on Dropbox probably, so when I send out confirmation that we've got the video up, I can share the slides as well, if people would like that. Okay, so broadly, are we all happy with that as community agreements? I was going to say a thumbs up, but I can't actually see anybody. So Kirsty's got thumbs up. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to assume that everybody is happy, and if you're not, then perhaps this is not the session for you. Sorry. All right, so I know that you're here because you wanted to talk about career planning. So let's talk through what the big picture overview is of what we're going to do. How do we actually do that? And then we can dive into each of these different steps. This is my very low key put together this afternoon slides. And this is actually a screenshot of what's in the PDF that you've got the link to. I've had a question in the chat about sharing when and which YouTube channel the recording will be posted. It will go onto the Rebels Guide to Project Management YouTube channel, which, I don't know, has 60 or so various quality videos on there. But if you're on my email list, then you will get an email after this with a note about the recording and a link to the slides. And if you're not on my email list and you don't want to be, then you can always message me separately, and I'll drop you the note with that. Okay, so we're talking about looking at last year. The first thing we do is reflect. Then we're going to look at how do we write down our goals, or we write them down because that makes them more real. Then we'll talk about boundaries and constraints around what you are prepared to do to achieve those goals. Then we need to define what help, if any, you need in order to get there. And finally, the detailed action plan. And you know, you've all told me that you work in project delivery and project professions, so you probably don't have to worry too much about knowing how to put together detailed plans, but we'll have a quick chat about that before we go too far at the end. Now, I've talked about this as career planning for the year, but actually it's a lot more practical to think about your career in terms of 90-day sprints, if I dare use that term, 90-day chunks, or the next 3 months, because, you know, frankly, in this day and age, who can predict what's going to be happening in the next 12 months and what we're doing by December? I don't even know what projects I'm going to be working on in December, and whether my goals might not be achievable because of the way that my organization wants to use my skills, for example, and I might be moved on to something else. So it is good to have broad long-term goals, but we don't know exactly what the future is going to bring. And so setting career objectives for the next 3 months might feel a bit more achievable, and then you can build in some flexibility to pivot along the way as your projects evolve. So I'm not going to tell you how long you should be thinking through, what your time frame should be. My suggestion is that if you are serious about career development, maybe one approach to do it would be a quarterly review. Once a quarter, you have a couple of hours in your diary and just go through this whole exercise, these 5 steps, and think through, what do I want to get out for the next quarter? Because doing it once a year and then trying to actually remember what you said when it comes to November doesn't really give you that sense of momentum going forward. So that's my learning from experience suggestion of the time frame that you have in mind when you start doing this exercise. Okay, so we start with what went well, what was good last year, because it's hard to look forward effectively if you haven't reflected on what worked in the past. So we do this in lessons learned on project management anyway. So, you know, you have retrospectives, you have lesson learned exercises. We do that, but it's also worth reflecting on life, your career, your job over the last however long. And in the workbook, in the PDF workbook, you'll have space. There's a space to jot those notes down and to reflect on what you've done. So it's worth taking a bit of time to think about, what did you enjoy working on? What projects were difficult? What was tough? Why was it hard? What were your biggest time wasters? And then some personal and professional highlights. So it's, you know, let's talk about all the stuff we don't want to do again because it was difficult or challenging, or we need to learn more about it to feel more confident. But also, what was really good? What made you excited about the work that you were doing? What did you achieve? And what, if anything, would you have changed? So that can give us some ideas around what goals might be good for the next time period. That is an awful lot of questions. So you probably want to take some time and sit and think through those answers. So for now, I'm going to ask you to reflect on the first one, which is, what projects did you enjoy working on this year? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about that and to write down your answer. Whether you're doing it on the PDF, on a scrap of paper, or on some other notes, it doesn't really matter. And if I am smart about it, I might be able to add the timer. I'll just slip Monica in. If I can add a timer to the screen, let's set that for 2 minutes and start. Display the timer further. So hopefully you can now see a countdown clock. And if you'd like to turn your camera off while you're thinking, you can always turn it back on again at the point that we come back together to talk about this. So I'm going to be quiet and let you think and reflect and jot down notes for a couple of minutes. If you've got questions, by all means, drop them into the chat and I will I can pick them up with you. You've just joined, Anthony, but you haven't lost sound. We're just having a minute or so left. You can see the timer on the screen to think about the projects that you enjoyed working on this year. So people are just doing a little bit of quiet note taking or reflecting for another 46 seconds. The timer has pinged. Hopefully you can hear that. It's quite a cool new thing, actually. Well, new to me anyway, that Zoom has added into that, added into to the app as a feature, which is quite good. So if anybody, I would like you to invite you now actually to put a quick summary of your answer in the chat so we can see all the exciting things that you've worked on this year. So if you are prepared to share a headline or so of the top projects or the things that you worked on that you were really happy about, you can open up the chat panel and drop a couple of comments in there. That we're not going to know the code names or whatever it is of your projects, but if you've worked on something that just was a pleasant experience and was a fun thing to do, it's quite interesting to think through what was good about it, why did you enjoy it. But it's I don't know, if I can share my own. Over the last year, one of the things that I've worked on is putting new X-ray rooms into hospitals. Most of those have failed spectacularly, to be honest, because it's difficult work and it's expensive work, and it takes a very long time. But we have put in some other medical equipment into hospitals, and it's made such a difference. It's so good, and to be able to see the pictures of before and after of once a room has been revamped and the new medical devices have gone in. It's just really great. And I can see here some people have been brave enough to share. So training and onboarding new project partners, that sounds really good. Implementing an LMS, that must have been a huge piece of work. First time leading an IT project for you, Laura, as well. So that's a massive, great big activity to be involved with. Well done. An AI helicopter project and digital marketing for a startup, creating a product and contributing directly to it and actually putting it out here on the market. I think Anastasia said that, but that's something that we can all relate to, I think, as project people, is that what we do makes a huge difference because we can see the outcome. When you've launched that thing into the world, it's making a difference to people. Enjoying working with community members, conservation, agriculture and beekeeping. Wow, that sounds fascinating. Onboarding new people. Oh, I've missed it. It's just chat's going too fast. Onboarding a new IT supplier. And Kirsty says, opened a new engagement sector for a charity, a real shift in focus, and it's impacting people. And when you can see the difference that your project's making, maybe that's what lights you up. Maybe that's what you want to think about, is how do I do more projects that have that kind of impact? And perhaps some of the projects that are more back end or process led, or I don't know, some different type of projects, and are not the kind of ones that fire you up the most. And some people do get do get to enjoy being able to improve processes and things. And Najiba said, what I enjoyed most in that project was defining scope sessions with the client, leading procurement process from the bidder and shortlisting, and doing that planning and procurement process. And I know when I started working with procurement, that was a really interesting take on it, because I'd not really seen that side of the business before. So it might also be the people that you worked with. It's what made the project so exciting or so interesting for you. Okay, so I think we could go through all of those questions. I don't think you want to do that on the call with me and everyone else watching. So I would suggest that your next step here is to block out some time to do that exercise more fully as a rounded reflection on your past 3 months, 12 months. And if you want to share that with your manager, then you can, or if you want to prompt your own team to have those kind of reflection and conversations, then you can do that too. With our next step is, we've got to think through now, what is it that we want to achieve? And when you think about career planning and professional development, this is probably the step that you hone in on the most, to say, what is it? What am I doing next? What does success look like? How will I know if I've got there? What are the high level goals that I need to set myself this year? And again, there's space in your workbook for answers, and think about no more than 3 goals, I would suggest, when you sit and do this exercise, perhaps after, and reflect. But for now, if we do a similar thing, have another couple of minutes and think through one goal, one thing that you think is possible for you to achieve in the next however long, whether it's a 3-month or 6-month time period that you are thinking of, whether it's a 12-month time period. You probably joined this conversation thinking through that you already had a goal in mind. And if you don't have anything that you'd like to do, then maybe we can talk about that afterwards. But I will stop talking for 1 minute 45 and give you a chance to grab your pad and or your on-screen notes and just have a little think about what it is that you would like to achieve. I can see people are already putting their goals into the chat, which is amazing. So if you've got something that you are prepared to share, by all means do drop it in. There's been fantastically ambitious and amazing selection of things that people are trying to do. Not trying to do, absolutely will certainly achieve, because you're going to set yourself out and do these things. Okay, that's the buzzer telling me that time is up. So thank you for taking part in that. Let me stop that from ringing so it's not annoying. There are a few things there that I wondered, does anybody want to come off of mute, and would anyone like to share a bit more about their goal?
Everybody wants Elizabeth. I can go first.
Yeah, don't fall over yourselves all at once. Go ahead.
Okay, actually I wrote down one. For a long time I was trying to find like time to certify, and I've been putting it aside. So like I learned, but something always came up. So I finally said, now is the time. I have 3 certifications. Maybe I'll not go like publicly mentioning which one, but just 3 in project management, which I want to pass this year. So for one, water for sure 1. And I can share which one. It's PMI, Agile, SCP. It's like basic one. I'm way beyond already this, but this is like a proof, right? So how we'll know that we will get, because it's a proof that I know it, So this is one thing. And another one was related to, even more experience working with scaled Agile, because right now it's quite popular, and I finally got there where I wanted, and I really love doing it. So the more experience in that, the better, more practice.
That sounds really good. Yeah. Thank you. And Najib, you've got your hand up. Did you say you wanted to set up a software company? Did I read that? Someone said that.
Actually, it's hello everyone. Hello Elizabeth. Nice to meet you all. Actually, I talked about my self-branding in project management.
That's right,
community,
and the podcast.
Because now I'm involved in project management community, and I would like to broaden my experience, because originally I am from construction industry, and now I'm interested in technology and volunteering and humanitarian works. So I would like to learn more about project management by giving output to the community. For example, by creating my own podcast series, and publish more articles in a local magazine. So it's learning by doing, meeting people, be a reporter for this industry, and I will in fact learning from this experience from others. This is my main goal for this year.
That's brilliant. And that's something that you can start to break down, although I'm jumping ahead to step 5, and start to say, this month I'm going to pitch this many articles, this month I'm going to record this many podcasts. And the learning through doing and the learning through teaching is so true. And I think, I learn so much when I'm mentoring other people, or I learn so much when I'm talking to people on podcasts and just chatting to people about their roles, because it's such an easy way to pick up new information and just to get better at what you do. So good luck with that. I think it's going to be really, that sounds really fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have anything to share? I'm not going to force you. So Tobias, go ahead. I can see your hand up. You'll have to come off mute. There you go.
Yes. Now, for me, I don't have much when it comes to experience, but I am based in Kenya. I'm new when it comes to sales and marketing, and that is my field. And this year, I really have a plan to build myself to achieve very great sales targets. I have very high sales targets for instruments. I've been in the laboratory chemicals, lab instruments. I've not been much on the international platform, but I really want to do that this year. Interact with the large manufacturing companies in the international platform for the laboratory equipment and chemicals. And I really want to do some great sales. I want to hit the $1 million target. And that is my interest.
Brilliant. And we need to have big targets. I don't know, is $1 million big in your industry? It feels big to me. It feels big. So that's go for it.
Big.
Brilliant.
Yeah, big. I have a team, so we want to go for it.
Yes, that sounds great. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing. Let me pop my screen back up for a second, because that was just one goal. I mean, you had time to think about one goal. That's not necessarily the only thing that you're going to want to do this year. So have that might be enough. It might not feel enough to you. So after this call, you might want to reflect further and think through a couple of other goals that you want to work towards this year. Once you've thought that through, it's important, I think, as to add this other step in of what's the non-negotiables, what are the boundaries beyond which you are not prepared to go for in order to achieve those goals. So you might have a goal of, you know, an ambitious target, or a change that you want to make, or a certification that you want to take. But if that means you have to work every evening, you have to give up every social event, you have to take a job in an industry that you don't really like, whatever it is, maybe we need to find a different way to achieve that goal that doesn't encroach upon those boundaries. Because some of the challenges that I've certainly found in my career is, if you want to do anything that's slightly different or above and beyond the day job, thinking about certification specifically, you have to find time for that and have to fit it in. And I remember doing my APM PMQ certification at a weekend. We did it was 2 weekends, one after the other, I think. And so what it actually ended up is that I sort of didn't have a day off in 3 weeks or something. And I just remember being totally exhausted by the time the exam came around, and not really thinking that doing weekend study was for me. So there might be, in terms of what you're prepared to commit, some boundaries that you want to set for yourself. So that might be, you don't want to work overtime. You know, you'll put in you will give all your all to your job, but there are some boundaries around overtime, or asking your team to work overtime, that you are not prepared to push this year. And that might go for working at the weekends as well. But equally, you might want to put a more positive spin on it and say, I am going to do professional networking, or I am going to take holidays this year. I am going to invest in my physical and mental well-being and book a massage every month, or I go to the gym, or eat soup, or do a detox every 3 months, or whatever it is that you feel you might be something that you want to commit to, because that also fits into your goals. It's great to have goals, but it's also great to have a life. And I think, you know, we don't want to find that actually the balance isn't there anymore. So I know I've put on here, I'll delete the Facebook app from my phone as it's my biggest time waster. That's not my personal goal. I'm not going to do that. I don't feel that I can separate myself from Facebook, but it's something I probably should do. But there we go. So in your workbook, you've got some space to write down the things that you're not prepared to compromise on. And I think, especially if you work with other people, if you have a team, it's worth having that conversation with them as well. So you can have a think through. In fact, as I've been talking, you've probably thought through some of the things. Oh, sorry, I'm going to cough again. Okay. So you've probably been thinking through something that you're prepared to do. So what I'd like you to do, have you ever done a chat waterfall before? What I'd like you to do is put a word or two of what you might define as your non-negotiables into the chat, but don't press enter. And what we're all going to do is press send or enter, or whatever it is. I can't remember if it's send or enter. That little button with that looks like a paper airplane. We're all going to press it at the same time. So then hopefully that will be a flood of people. So give me a bit of a thumbs up when you've typed in your answer, and then I'll count down for people to press enter, and then we'll see what people have put. So again, if you've just joined us, this is around what are your non-negotiables, your constraints, your boundaries, your things you're not prepared to budge on this year, because that's also a kind of goal, right? It's also a target that you're setting for yourself around behaviors, around what it is that you're going to be prepared to do. So do you have something ready to go? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. So I'll count you down and then hit go. I was going to type something for myself then, but I'm not going to be fast enough. All right, 3, 2, 1, click. Let's see. Wow, that worked much better than I thought it would. Thank you very much. I love that one, Manuela. It's I will not lower my fees. Fantastic. And DW said hard stopping at 35 hours. Absolutely. Yes. Family time off. So what you can do is scroll back up now and see if anyone else has a similar non-negotiable to you. And because there's a few in here that I think I would like to do. Sharp focus on prime targets, going to attend dancing lessons. You know, it's about taking time for yourself, isn't it? I mean, it's great to do work and committing to CPD as an investment in yourself. We need to do those things, but you know, family time off and things is good as well. And it's surprising, actually, knowing project managers, not that surprising how many of you have actually put something around time commitments at work, family time, and those boundaries. Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much. Okay, so our next step is all around finding the support network. Why does that say 5? I think that should say 4, shouldn't it? 3 to 5? Yeah, consider that to be a typo. We're on step 4. So thinking about, you've got your goals. Now, I know you've probably only got one in your head at the moment. Maybe you've got a few more, but once you sit down after this event and think through more broadly in a more detailed way, because it's a bit difficult to do on a call like this, think about who is going to help you reach those goals. So perhaps it's your manager, perhaps you need some support with training, perhaps you need some support with finding the time in the working day to invest in yourself. Perhaps it's a particular training course that you want to go on and you want your manager to find the money to pay for that, or to give you the time off to attend the lessons and the exam. Perhaps it's getting a mentor or a coach who would hold you accountable, whether you pair up with someone in your office or you find someone in a different industry through another network that you're part of. Maybe that's something that would help you stay on track and achieve your goals. Perhaps it's friends and family, so that they are aware that you're working towards a certification, for example, or they're aware that when it comes to 5 o'clock, they should be knocking on your home office door saying, it's time to stop now, turn the keyboard away, close the laptop down, come and spend time with us. So there might be some family support that you can call on as well. One thing, for example, that that I have actually done this week is to find some childcare so that I can go out and do something. So childcare arrangements, if that needs to be put in place to give you the option of an evening to go and do a networking event or to join a networking event online without being interrupted, is perhaps something you want to think about. And so there might be some other personal connections that you've got that are people who might be prepared to help, and there might be some groups that you could join locally or online that would hold you accountable or help you achieve that. So from an informal perspective, we have the Project Management Cafe Facebook group. So that's a group of people on Facebook. And we've also got the Project Management Rebels mentoring group, which is a little bit more structured for people to come together once a month. But in your workbook or wherever you're making your notes today, you can write down a few individuals or groups who you could call on for support. Okay, so that's a step that I think is probably best that you do in your own time. And we'll move on to talk about which is actually slide 5, step 5, the action planning step, which is probably the bit that you were thinking that is the biggest part. And I think you'd be right. This is probably the biggest part of how do we actually turn those goals into reality. So you've got a clear idea of what you'd like to achieve and what you won't compromise on and who could help. Now it's that time to plan out how you're actually going to get there. And this is the step you'll probably want to take the most time on. We're not going to go through it today, but if you can take each of those goals and break them into action steps, you can give each one a due date, and that gives you a plan really to achieve those goals. And you might find it easier to do that in whatever template your organization uses for professional development. So I know in my old organization, we all got a template to fill in which said our professional goals, and then at the end of the sort of work objectives that our manager was holding us accountable for, there was a table of what else do we want to do on top of that? What professional development and career building stuff do we want to do, with columns for dates and other things. So if your organization's got something like that, you could use that as your plan, or you can just create any create some notes of your own. I'm not going to tell you how to make a plan because you're all project professionals. You do it every day. So I would say that step takes a little bit of time and thinking. So I don't want you to do that now. But if anyone has any questions about how they're going to achieve their goals or that process, then now is a good time for that. I don't think I've missed any questions in the chat, but please do speak up if I have overlooked something, because it's been going a little bit faster than I can keep up with some of the time. Okay. So do you all feel confident about being able to take those goals and breaking them down into action steps? I think, yeah, Damien's nodding, Kirsty's nodding. It's for me just a case of thinking through, to use the example that someone shared earlier, let's say wanting to build a professional profile of content and contributions to the industry. Every month saying, okay, I'm going to write an article for a blog. Every month I'm going to pitch myself to a podcast or record an episode of my podcast, and then to think through, okay, so that gives me 12. If I'm going to do 12, I need 12 people to talk to, or I need 12 topics to discuss. How am I going to find those topics? And making that plan out and putting that time in your diary and your calendar to actually see that through. A question's been asked here. What's the difference between an action plan and an implementation plan? Nothing really. An action plan for me is a list of actions for you to implement what you've decided to do. So it's more of a case of listing out the tasks and the dates that you want to achieve those tasks by. So if your goal is to get PMP certification, for example, then your first step would be to find a trainer, a training course that you're prepared to go on, and sign up for that. You might want to do that piece of research and choose a provider in the next 6 weeks. And then your next action would be do the training, and then your next action after that would be book the exam, and then your next action after that would be take the exam and pass with flying colours. And you will have planned that out to say, okay, it's going to take me 6 weeks to do the research to find a provider. Then I'm going to do the training and that exercise, and my own self-study will take 3 months. I'll book the exam therefore in July, and then hopefully by that date I've passed. So it's breaking it down. But if you want to call it an action plan or an implementation plan or a task list, all of those bits of terminology would work fine here. Okay, and yes, Ramana Sara, I probably said your name wrong, I'm sorry about that, saying need the plan and stick to it. That's the key thing, isn't it? Because creating this plan, you can come off this call, you can be excited and sit down with a glass of wine tonight and plan it, great. But if you don't actually stick to it, then that's the problem. And I think it's always been helpful for me to share my plans, to share my thoughts with other people, so that by saying it out loud and by telling other people, it becomes more of an obligation on myself to deliver and to do those things. So you might want to find a trusted colleague, or you might want to talk to your manager or your partner or someone at home and share those goals. Mohammed set a very good question. Maybe we could do a little bit of a show of hands. Did you achieve all the goals you set at the start of 2022? I don't believe that I did, and Laura's put the same. And I think that partly ties back to what I said at the very beginning about planning across a 12-month horizon is difficult. Because if I think where I was at the beginning of 2022, I wasn't working for an employer. I was running my own business, and I had fully intended to do that for the whole of 2022. And then a fantastic job appeared, and it would have been silly to say no to such a great opportunity. So I took the job, and my whole careers and goals changed because my work was suddenly very different. So I think, and it's an interesting conversation that I've had within our family unit over many years, because you might have a 10-year goal of where you want to be, or in your personal life, you want to move house or have kids or relocate to Australia, or I don't know, whatever it is. And you might take a very long-winded, winding journey to get there. And that's okay. And it might be that actually next year you change your mind and Australia isn't the place for you anymore. And that's fine too. But if you don't ever have any goals, you've got no chance of ever doing anything or achieving it. So I think I've always taken the view that if you set a goal, and then suddenly it doesn't become relevant anymore. You haven't changed, you know, you haven't lost anything. You've just moved on, moved past it, moved in a different direction, and you'll set something else that is more aligned to what you want to achieve with life and your values. So Denise has summed it up much more eloquently than, than I have. I'm proud to have managed to accept the change and go with the flow. What a great way of living, really. Brilliant. Okay, well, we're almost at the end, to be honest. Let me quickly summarize the process that we followed today. You can change this up and use that PDF. It's helpful to make it suit your situation. So we talked about looking back and doing that reflection exercise. We talked about defining what you want your goals to be, and then what boundaries you're going to put around your availability and willingness to achieve those goals. Then talked about identifying what support, if any, that you need in order to make it real, make it happen, and then creating that action plan of detailed tasks and steps and dates to help you get there. And Damien's put something great in the chat as well. If you can, buddy up with a colleague you can trust and support each other to do this continuous professional development and to support each other's well-being as well. And I think that's really true, isn't it? Don't be too hard on yourself. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So what? You know, we've got to be kind to ourselves above all else, because work is hard. We spend an awful lot of time there. We might as well make it as pleasant an experience and not beat ourselves up about it. Okay, so my personal reflection on today, while I've been listening to you, I felt people have been very willing to share and open with their goals, and some of the things that you've got planned this year or in the next however long sound fascinating and really exciting. So I'm really hopeful, and I wish you all the best with achieving those. So one more thing that I'd like you to do, or I'd invite you to do before we bring this conversation to an end, or to open it up for more questions really, is just to put in the chat something that you can take, one action that you're going to take after today. What's one thing that you are going to commit to doing? So we talked about, you know, holding each other accountable and committing to things. So this is your first invitation to do that. If you'd like to share something in the chat, an action that you will take, then please do. And while you're thinking about that, actually, I found a fantastic work. Again, it came from Jan Keck's workshop. I didn't just stumble across it. The facilitation course that I went on that he ran, this was one of our exercises to do. It's a website called futureme.org, and you write a letter to your future self and you set a date for when you want it to be sent to you in email. And mine came through the other day, and it was just really interesting to go back to see what I'd said in August that I was going to do. So if you're thinking, I don't have a colleague, I don't trust anyone at work, or I'm not currently working, or I don't know who I can ask, you can hold yourself accountable. Go to futureme.org, write yourself a letter, schedule it for 3 months, send yourself a note, put a thing in your calendar to say, you know, write another one, and then it will email you a letter and it will hold you accountable in that respect. And so that's quite good. So we've got some quarterly planning from Anastasia. That's brilliant. Finishing off Scrum Master course, sticking to the goals, getting colleagues on board, brilliant. And yeah, some love for futureme.org with birthday letters and things. So that's good. Okay, so I've got nothing more formal to share. I'm happy to stay on and chat if there's things that people want to talk about, or you just want to, you know, ask questions, come off mute and chat. Sometimes it can help you reach clarity if you want to discuss your ideas out loud with someone else. But before you drop off, I did just want to say we have another webinar, free webinar next week, which is Tuesday, the 24th of January, 6 p.m. UK time, so slightly earlier than we met today. And that is with change management expert Nicola Graham, who wrote this book, Build, Excite, Equip. And so she is talking about the change management framework principles. How do you engage people on projects? So for some of you who are working in organizations where it's difficult to get stakeholders to adopt new things, that might be a really interesting session to come along to. All right, well, thank you very much for your participation today. And yeah, like I say, I'll be here for a couple more minutes, but otherwise, thanks for showing up. Thanks for taking part. And it's been lovely to talk to you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is somewhat related regarding just professional development and planning. I saw on your website you have how to list past projects on your resume. Do you have any examples of what that would look like, though, in terms of structure and formatting?
But putting projects on your resume?
Yes.
I've got a blog post that talks about how do you put projects on LinkedIn. When you said that you've seen something on my website, was that what you were referring to?
Yes, it says how to list projects on your resume and no stress guide. And I can
Okay.
post the link in the chat.
Right,
I know you
brilliant.
have a
Thank you.
lot of resources.
Yeah, there's a 1,000 articles on there, so I'm not. I sometimes need a bit of a prompt as to what was what. So in terms of phrasing the projects, in terms of how do you describe what project you're talking about, I think what's really important is to think about why I'm describing it in the first place. So if you're going for a particular job and the skill set in the job description talks about you need to be confident working with senior leaders, for example, then you need to sort of tweak what you've put in your resume to say for each of the projects how you engage with senior leaders. So I don't think there's a one size fits all answer, but broadly I would take out all the jargon around how you know, all the internal language that you use internally because people understand it and it's a shorthand in your own organization. Strip out all of that and try and use really generic terms, and then think through what did I actually do and how do I make my contribution clear to other people. And it's normally around leading, facilitating, managing, delivering, coordinating groups of people, collaborating, engaging with people. And so you lead with the verb. What was it that you did? And the thing I think is most important with project descriptions as a hiring manager is data. So did you lead a team of 2 people or did you lead a team of 200 people? Because that would help me know whether or not you're a good fit for this job. Because if this job is actually only leading a team of 5 people, this would be a great fit for you. If you're used to leading a team of 200 people, you're going to be bored within 5 minutes. So that's quite helpful to know. So things like if you can say how long the project took, what the budget was, that kind of data point. And I think often people can't say how much the budget was because it's confidential, but you can say how many people you work with or how many months the project lasted, and that can give hiring managers a sense of scale. I don't know if any of that's helpful, Leanne.
It is extremely helpful. As I'm sure you're aware, healthcare is super nuanced depending the industry you're in. So that really helps bridge that gap. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Hello, may I come in?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't. I can't switch my camera just because it's night here. But I joined the meeting late. But what I want is just to learn more about your guys. So what do you do? Where are you located? So I think I just want a summary for your organization so that I can know you more, and also I can do some research for your organization. I'm sorry to ask that just because I joined the meeting late.
That's okay. I didn't talk about it at the beginning. My background is I found project management quite early. So I went to work in financial services for American Express as my first job out of university, and found project management through their graduate training scheme. So I was lucky really in that respect that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an English literature degree, which didn't naturally lend itself to any particular career. But working for a big organization, I got to see the different departments and I had no idea that project management was even a career. So I've found that department, which was great to hear more about the fact that that actually existed as a job. And so when I left the American Express graduate training scheme, I was able to look for roles that were project related. So after that, I went to work in insurance, and then from insurance into healthcare. And so I've worked in a number of different organizations, but I'm not really affiliated with any employer as we do this. So I am here because as an author and as a blogger, I have a little company of my own. Rebels Guide to Project Management does training and mentoring and webinars and stuff like that. And we run the Project Management Rebels community mentoring group as well, and a number of other things. And I do it because it's it's interesting and it's nice to meet other people, and it's nice to hang out with people who have common problems and common goals, and also because I love writing. So I think a lot of starting out blogging about project management was just because of the old adage, write what you know. And I wanted to write a book before I was 30, and books and blogs seem to go a little bit hand in hand. So I just got into it, and it went from there and never stopped.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
my life in a potted history.
Then I'm also lucky just because I have found a trainer, so that you are going to be one of the trainer who are going to train me about the management information system. How can I analyze the data, collect data? I think I'll be able to collect that after maybe 2 or 3 sessions from you.
I don't teach about data management, I'm afraid. I'm more interested in the soft skills to do with project management. So the course that I'm running in February is around stakeholder engagement. So that is all around dealing with difficult situations and difficult behavior from stakeholders, identifying stakeholders in the first place to make sure you've got the right people involved. That's session 1 and session 3, and we're doing something else in session 2, which I can't remember what it is. I can't remember what's on the syllabus. I think that might be actually, what does doing stakeholder engagement look like? Because we talk about project management is quite a lot of buzzwords, and we talk about we need to engage people, and we need to, but what does that actually mean? What do you do every day to do the engagement? And that was something that I wrote about in this book. So it did end up, APM asked me to write a book about engaging stakeholders. So the February course draws on that quite a lot. To try to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Oh, is it the morning in your country, or it's night also?
It's night for us, 8:30, pitch black outside.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Any other thoughts or shares or questions before we draw it to a close? I know I've kept you for an
Hi,
hour.
Elizabeth.
Hi.
This is Zubair, and I had a question. So when we work in an organization, a big organization, we have both the goals, shared goals. We have shared goals, and you have your own goals, right? So, if you have an answer to my question, like I mainly get stuck into doing the shared goals, and then I have to do my own goals as well. Like I work in investment banking company, and I have to look after a software, and I have my own goals that I want to improve it for ease of access. That is an internal software, not an outside application. So I want to improve it for ease of access or automate it in any way I can. But I find myself stuck most of the times in working on shared goals that is related to application that is customer based. So how do I manage this thing?
That's a really good question.
How do you manage it?
Ideally, strategy gets set, then your department heads will get their goals around what their targets are for the year, and then line managers get theirs, and then it cascades down the organization. So our personal goals should relate to the department or team or shared goals. So if you fulfill your personal goals, you should be contributing to the overall goals, and everyone's golden. It works out. But it doesn't always work like that, and you might have personal goals that don't fit with one of the team objectives. I would say this is a really flawed way of how organizations incentivize their staff, because if you are incentivized to do the team goals, your personal goals suffer at your own personal cost, because the organization employs you, but it doesn't necessarily owe you a living. And if you want to get on and develop your career, you're gonna have to put that extra effort in. Or it goes the other way around. You're incentivized to complete your personal goals, and actually the team's objectives don't get met because people are so busy doing that activity that actually it pulls them away from other things. So I would say if there's not that synergy between the more structured team goals and what you're personally trying to do, first try to make them align so that it doesn't feel such a stretch when you are working on your own goals, because it joins up. And secondly, I'd say have a conversation with your manager to find the time to do those personal goals, because that sounds like a problem of prioritization or time management, not necessarily how you manage your time, but how you're allowed to manage your time because of other priorities, so that you're ring fencing some time. And what I used to do, although I haven't done it this year yet, is put an hour a week in my diary just for personal development. And whatever I wanted to do that week, you know, whether it's reading the APM magazine that has sat on my desk for 3 weeks, or studying for something, or trying to meet my personal objectives, I'd have some time booked out. And if an hour a week feels too much, then maybe you put in an hour a fortnight, an hour a month, and a task in your calendar that reminds you, update my objectives. Because if you go into your objectives on a regular basis, you're more likely to stay on top of it, and then you don't get to October and go, oh God, I haven't done it. I've got to, you know, now put a whole lot of effort in to try and tick all the boxes by the end of the year.
Got it. I got it. Got it. I got it. That's actually not to highlight, but a flawed, you named it correctly. That's a flawed organizational structure that you're not allowed to do self-learning, that
Really?
you do from the projects you want to do. Like you want to automate something, or you want to digitalize something. But there are company goals and managers' goals as well that you need to align yourself to.
Yes.
Thank you. That was good. I got it.
All right. Samuel, I can see you've come off mute. Do you want to come in there?
Yes. I wanted just to say thank you for the presentation and the way we have done, you know, part of the physical exercise. You know, myself, I'm an executive director for Hope Plus organization, but I also have the counseling center. That's a private issue. I'm also a trainer in a number of areas, you know, the mentorship at national level and other areas. But I think from the presentation, we talk about 2023 plans. So I could really see that this is much beneficial in terms of the arranging how best should I plan for the 2023. So I will really incorporate, you know, some of the issues we have discussed. So with that, I think if you have multiple, you know, projects, multiple areas, automatically, I think this is really beneficial. So I wanted just to say, Elizabeth, thank you so much. And this is really wonderful.
It's lovely to meet you as well, because I know we've exchanged emails, and to have you know, have the opportunity to chat is good.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's call it a night. I will get the recording together. I will get the slides out to people. We'll get the video up onto YouTube so you can watch it back, or if you don't need to watch it back because you were here. But if you want to share it with any of your colleagues, then you can do that. And if anyone comes off the call and you think, oh, I wish I'd asked that question, or I didn't want to ask it because everyone was listening, then just drop me an email, because I will do my best to help. And you've got your PDF for your notes. We've got a little bit of a process. I wish you all the best with your career planning. And you'll have to get in touch in a couple of months and let me know how you got on, how many of those are goals that we actually achieved. So have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll draw the meeting to a close. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.